Hi there, I'm Zane Franson, VP of Platform and Operations here at Simply Ask, and today I'm going to share with you how you can create a structured automated agent. Now, when you first log in, you'll be brought to the My Summary screen, and it'll look something like this. Now, to go and create your agent, you'll want to navigate over to Converse, then click Agent Manager, and it'll bring you to the Agent Manager view. Now, if you had already set up any automated agents, they would appear here, but for now, we haven't yet, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to click Create New Agent, and here we need to fill in some fields, the name, the description, and the type. In our case, maybe we're going to call this Customer Support, and the type we're creating today is structured. We have another video on how to create generative, and we can select some tags if we want, and this could be for customer experience maybe. And you could add as many tags you want, or none at all if that's what you desire. So let's go ahead and click Confirm. Now, once we do that, we're brought to this structured agent editor here. Now, in this agent editor, you have the ability to build out a flow of conversation starting from the starting step and going through each various steps during the support interaction. So when you're building out your steps, you have a variety of blocks that you can use. You have a parameter block, a speak block, an action, an inquiry, transition, and some special ones for transferring to human and changing to a different automated agent. Now today, if we want to go ahead and have our agent just say something, then we're going to use a speak block. And to connect it all up is just simple drag and drop, and now we're connected. Now, if we want it to then say something else and actually specify the message, we just say, "Hi there." And when we actually run our automated agent, we will see that it does in fact say, "Hi there." Now we can do some other things here too as well. So if we want to collect some information from the end user, we can use a inquiry step. And this is information that you could use in later steps. So maybe we want to have an inquiry block here that asks a question of, what is your name? And then we can have a parameter that it'll store that value into called name, which we can use later. And we can also use some validation to make sure that it is in fact actually collecting a name. There's other types you can select here, like dates and times and so on, email, to make sure it's actually valid. In this case, we can also select any, and then it won't do any validation at all. Let's do another inquiry as well, and we'll drag that in here. And then we can write something like, what is your question? And we're going to store that as a question. And we're going to set that up as any. Now, finally, what we're going to want to do is to navigate to another step. And to do that, we're going to use what we call a transition block. So if we drag that in here, we can then set up a transition. In this case, we'll do a condition, and we'll say when every rule is true, and we're going to check when the parameter value of name is not equal to null, meaning it is not empty. And I promise this is the most technical that the editor gets. The question is not equal to null. And then we're going to have it go to another step, maybe an action block. And we'll drag and drop that there. Now, keep in mind that you can actually have multiple transitions here as well. You don't just have to have one step. So maybe you want to have a different condition, and you want to say that when the name is equal to Bob, well, then you want it to go a different route because you have a special way you want to handle Bobs of the world. But in our case, we're not going to do that. So we're going to go ahead and just delete this block. Now we can do some other things here too as well. You don't have to use parameters like this to do all of your navigation. You can also use what we call intents. Now intents allow you to use AI to kind of do a fuzzy matching of, based on what the user is saying, what actions should be performed next. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to add a intent. I'm going to actually delete this action block, and we're going to add an intent and a speak over here. where it's going to say, do you like dogs? Okay. And what we can do after this is we can add a transition block, and we can use an intent, and we could use a pre-built one, like if the user is indicating they want to transfer to human, we could use that, or we can create a custom one, and that's what we're going to do. So to do so, we're going to click Create New Intent, and this is how we're training the AI model in order to know what the user is saying, and to do that fuzzy matching classification through natural language processing. So in this case, we just want a simple yes classification, and we'll give it some phrases that a human might say in order to indicate yes, like yes, of course, maybe for sure, why not, and so on. You don't really need to add too many here. Normally 5 or 6 or more is good. If you add more, generally does increase the quality. You can actually even auto-generate some phrases using our AI engine. But generally speaking, just a handful is good. And then it also augments the list with its own options as well. So we'll create a yes intent, and we'll create a no intent. We'll say no. Maybe the user would say never. I hate them. That's a strong one. Or not really, maybe a bit more passive. And we can create that. Now also note you have the ability to create it into what we call global intent, and that allows you to share it among multiple agents. So you don't have to recreate these over and over again if you do have common intents that you do use from agent to agent. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click Create Intent. We've now created both of them. We can close out of this, and now we can go back into our transition block, and we can select one of the ones we created, like yes or no. So if we select yes, then what that means is when the user responds, do you like dogs? It's going to take this yes transition, and it's going to go somewhere else, maybe to here. And if we add another step and we select no, then if the user says, no, I don't like dogs, it's going to take them to this bottom step here. And you can kind of build out your branching this way in order to handle a wide variety of different answers that are kind of like yes, kind of like no, classify them, and then direct the conversation using this AI engine to where it should go to next. Now, there's also something you can do, and you can actually embed generative AI into your structured agents. Now, the way that you can do that is you can, let's delete this block here. We can drag in a action. Maybe on this branch here, we want to add an action, and we can do a few things like prompting Simply Assistant, executing APIs, triggering processes, and so on. In our case, let's do prompt Simply Assistant because that's our AI engine within Symphona. And we can then have a prompt or a query. In this case, we did collect a question originally. So why don't we use it over here too? And just remember that every time you use a parameter within one of these steps, or blocks, I should say, you have to make sure that you use these double brackets open and double curly brackets closed, just like that. There's some other things you can configure here too, where if you only want it to respond from information you have configured within a knowledge base, you can do that and select a knowledge base. And within our generative agent video, we do actually go over how you can configure a knowledge base. Or you can also have it where you can use your knowledge base and then as a backup, use a general knowledge base that the big AI model has. In our case, we'll keep it simple and just do AI model. Now, if you see here, it does output a response. So the AI model is going to do something, it's going to respond, and then you could say that to the user, and we'll do that in a second. And then there's a few other things we can do, like we can give it some guidance saying you are a chatbot that responds to questions. And the guidance will help it understand generally how it should respond. Now keep in mind there is a difference between guidance and context here. Now guidance is not actually used when the knowledge base is searched, whereas context can be used when the knowledge base is searched. So a little bit of nuance there, but generally speaking, when you want to give it instructions about how it should respond and formatting instructions, guidance is the place to put it. There's other advanced settings you can do here, like including past messages within the conversation thread. You can also do other things like including the um, modifying the model which is used. And these you can select the best for your use case, depending if you want faster, slower, and so on. And then you can also fine tune the amount of results which are pulled from the knowledge base, with more results providing higher quality answers, but a little less performance and less results doing vice versa. And then finally, in response format, you can give it a persona. So maybe you want it to respond like a cowboy, and you could do that as well. Or you can change some other things around the length of responses. You can configure that. If you want to include references in responses, if you want it to translate the input that's provided to the output, and so on. Now, speaking of output, after this prompt AI Simply Assistant step occurs, we can do something. So maybe we want to set up a transition and say when a response is not null, because remember, this step generates a parameter up here called response. So when it's not null, meaning when a response has been generated or response has a value, then it can go to a next step. And so here we can do something like this, drag it over, and we can have it output that response as a parameter within the speak block. Or we can have it output on the fulfillment phrase, which is basically when this block executes, it can say something. Or we can have it say it during the inquiry step if we add one like that to here, and so on. So very flexible. You can use these parameters wherever. And through this, you can build a hybrid structured agent with generative AI. And you can even use AI for your intent classification to allow for this fuzzy matching and structured conversation all in one. So thank you for listening, and best of luck on your automation journey.